Hi guys, so usually I talk about novels, I talk about fiction, but I actually do read quite a lot of nonfiction as well, and I enjoy it very much. So today I wanted to take the chance and introduce some of my absolute favorite nonfiction books of all time and see what you think about them. But before we get into it, please do remember to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and let's get into it. So we are starting off this list with one of my absolute favorites. So this is On Wings of Eagles, and it's by Ken Follett. It's one of my absolute favorite books ever, I would say. It's written in the early 1980s, and the interesting thing about it is, number one, it is written by Ken Follett. So Ken Follett, of course, usually writes fiction, historical fiction, and I believe this is either his only or one of his very few non-fiction books that he ever wrote. So what is this book about? On Wings of Eagles tells the story, an amazing story during the Iranian Revolution in the late 1970s. And it tells the story of an IT company, actually, EDS. So EDS was an American IT company. They were in Iran, and they were, I believe they were supplying a social security IT system for the government, basically. And when tensions with the Iranian government and the West rose, the Iranian government basically arrested two EDS employees, I believe under the accusation of bribery. And then the owner and the CEO of EDS back in the US, Ross Perot, he tried to find a solution with the US government, with the military, to try to get them help and get these people out of prison and get them back to the US. For him, this was just not going fast enough, so he, on short notice, decided, okay, I am going to build my own team of mercenaries, basically. So he built a team of retired, many of them, they had some military experience and they were now working in EDS. So he built this team under the lead of a retired Colonel Simmons. And the team trained, they gathered information on where these two people were being held, what the situation is, what potential escape routes would exist. And he actually sent in that team to get these two people out. And what makes it so special and so suspenseful is that it's actually a true story. And this story is, although I believe there was a movie made about it, but this story for some reason is not as known or as popular as the other story that happened about a year or two later in Iran, in Tehran, when the US embassy was basically attacked. Which, you know, is told in the very popular movie Argo from a few years back. But I always found the story of EDS, of Ross Perot, of them, you know, building this team of retired amateurs, basically, and sending them in to get two co-workers out of the country and out of prison back to safety. I always found that story much more interesting than the other one. So if you are interested in that kind of period, in that kind of historical nonfiction, and Ken Follett is a great writer, we all know that. Please do give On Wings of Eagles a chance, and, you know, let me know in the comments below if you like this book and if you have any similar suggestions to it. So my next one here is Moneyball by Michael Lewis, from the early 2000s. This story, of course, has become very popular with the highly successful movie starring Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill, I believe. And I have seen the movie first and I absolutely loved it. And this is coming from a person, you know, Europeans, we have no idea about baseball. I don't know baseball. I have never managed to really understand the rules of baseball. And even, you know, watching the movie and afterwards reading the book, which is even more technical than the movie, and many of these technicalities I didn't really understand, but the story is told so suspenseful and so interesting that it didn't matter to me that I don't like baseball, I don't know anything about baseball, and I don't really know much about these calculations, but I found it so interesting that, you know, a small team like the Oakland A's, as the story goes, is able to compete with bigger teams who have much more money to pour into new players, to pour into new resources and infrastructure. And a small team like the Oakland A's was able to challenge them and actually win a lot of games against some of these big teams, just by kind of reinventing the wheel and adding numbers, figures, and mathematics and probability into this sport. And it's absolutely amazing to see that kind of story of Billy Beane, of course, the general manager of the Oakland A's, and how he transformed this team, and by transforming this team, transforming the whole industry as a whole, as far as I understand it. So, of course, by now, one of my absolute favorites, Moneyball, both the book, the movie, as well as the audiobook. I very much enjoy the story, and I go back to it every now and then. So the next one of the list, I believe, tells the most amazing survival story in human history, I believe, and it's the story of Shackleton and his exploration on the Endurance. And there are many books written about it, but my absolute favorite is by Alfred Lansing, and Endurance, Shackleton's Incredible Voyage. So this book tells the story of Ernest Shackleton. So Ernest Shackleton was a very experienced explorer, and he lived during like the great times of exploration of both the North and South Pole. And he was on many of these exhibitions with like personalities like Scott, for example. And he was you know, living during the same time and exploring during the same time as Scott and Amundsen and all these very well-known characters. But I always found his story a lot more interesting than all of these success stories, because of course things didn't go as planned on this expedition. So the original plan was for Shackleton to basically cross the South Pole, because that was kind of the only thing that was left to do. So at that time that he wanted to cross the South Pole, people had already made the first expedition to the very center point of the South Pole. So the only thing that was really novel and left to do, and where he was able also to get sponsors and money for, was to actually attempt a full crossing of the South Pole. And that's what he set out to do with his team. And with the Endurance, the ship. Unlucky as they were, they got stuck off the coast of the South Pole already. They got stuck in ice pack, and, you know, hunkering down on the ship for many months. Until it was finally clear that they would not be able to get out of the ice anymore. And they were still hoping for the ice to melt so that they could still continue on with their original plans. But over time, the ice pack started to actually push with so much force towards the ship that the ship was actually destroyed, and they had to get off the ship and start camping on the ice. And this is then basically what this whole story and the whole book is about. It tells the story of how they survived on the ice for I believe more than 9 months. They were on the ice, and how they in the end finally escaped. And it's a story of a travel over the ice and traveling in their small little rescue boats that they were able to save from the Endurance, up to hiking over a mountain that was never ever hiked over before that period of time. So it's absolutely nerve-wracking and astonishing how much men can take, and how inventive they can get if they need to survive. And it's also very interesting on how Shackleton was able to, under these difficult situation, to keep the team together, and, you know, not just have everybody attacking each other, because they were out of food, they were, you know, out of anything basically, and very little hope was left of survival. But he was still able to keep life organized with them, and keep them focused on a common goal, which is actually how I first got into the story of the endurance in Shackleton, because there are many leadership books written on Shackleton, and these books go into great depth to explore what kind of skills we can learn from his leadership style at the time, and from his leadership skills during this whole situation. So that's how I first got into it, and then I ended up with this book by Alfred Lansing, which I think tells the story beautifully. But there are many other books on this topic. Some of them also written either based on the notes of survivors or the survivors by themselves that were part of this whole situation and of this whole expedition to the South Pole with Shackleton. So if you're into this kind of shipwreck stories, this is the absolute best one to read. So the next one on the list is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by, and I have to read this off, otherwise I'm getting it wrong, by Yuval Noah Harari. And it was written in 2000, published in 2011. So it's been a few years, and he has published a number of amazing other books since then. But for me, A Brief History of Humankind by Harari is just probably, although it's a very thick book, it's a very long book, but it's such an amazing collection of the whole history, basically from 100,000 years ago, how everything developed, to basically 2011 when the book was finished. And Harari is able to pack so much information and so much knowledge into this one book here, but still, you know, being able to tell it in a way that is a little bit witty, and also has a little bit of humor to it all the time. And I really very much enjoyed his writing style, to the point that I didn't feel that it's a chore reading this book. And usually when reading longer nonfiction books, I take a lot of time with it. So I might read a chapter in a week, and then maybe I put the book down for a month or even two, and then I read another chapter. But with this one, I do remember, and I've read it a few years ago, but I do remember that I was finished within a week with Sapiens, because it just really kept me very interested, and it pulled me in with the fast-paced writing style, but also many facts, very factual writing style, but it just felt very comfortable reading about it, and learning about our history, learning about this planet, and learning about our people on this earth. So I think that's definitely a book that belongs on a must read of anybody that wants to know anything about our history and our time here on this little planet in the universe. So the next one is a little bit of an unusual one, and it is Seinfeldia, How a Show About Nothing Changed Everything. And it was written by Jennifer Keeshin Armstrong. And it was published in 2016. So this, of course, tells the story of how Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld came up with Seinfeld, and how kind of the workings behind everything, behind the production was for the TV show, how the competition with other TV shows was, and just, you know, the whole trivia and background information about Seinfeld, basically. And for me, I've always been a huge Seinfeld fan, so for me it was an absolute treat of being given all this kind of knowledge and background information, how this show came to be, this most unusual show that exists in the world, and that changed comedy, and how comedy was written, how comedy was produced in the US for many years after. So if you are interested in Seinfeld, if you every now and then rewatch a few episodes, do read Seinfeldia. It gives so much background information on the TV series. And I do know there's still many people out there who rewatch Seinfeld on a regular basis. So this book is definitely for you. So the next one, I believe, currently is a little bit of a sensitive topic. I am talking about the autobiography on Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. But guys, hear me out. No matter if you do like Elon Musk or not, you do have to enjoy Walter Isaacson's writing and the depth of research that go into his biographies. Like, I could also mention the Steve Jobs biography, but for this list I settled on the Elon Musk one, because it's just absolutely amazing how much access to Elon Musk and how much information he was given. Often at times, it goes so far as to that Elon Musk, some of the very big decisions of his life, he kind of not really asked for Isaacson's opinion on it, but still kind of bounced ideas back and forth with Walter Isaacson while Isaacson was writing the book on him. So it goes very deep, and it goes to show the kind of behind of scenes. We start, learning or hearing of a lot of these things that we read and hear from the news only from one side. It's very interesting to just also having Walter Isaacson laying out all these facts that he has explored, just for us out in the open and for us ourselves to judge on what we think of some of these decisions and what we think of this person, and everything that kind of happened over the last 20 years with SpaceX, with Tesla, with OpenAI, and with all these kind of companies. But the interesting thing about the biography, it goes very far back. So it starts from the very beginning, from his upbringing in South Africa to his college days in Canada, and his earlier kind of entrepreneur projects with what would end up being PayPal today. So it gives a lot of background information if you're interested into that. And I think no matter if you do like or not like Elon Musk, there is a lot to learn from this book and from his kind of reasoning and his behavior. There's a lot to learn for any aspiring entrepreneur in this book. There's things to learn on how to do it, and there's also things to learn on how not to do it. So I think apart from the fact that he is a very interesting personality today, and also combined with the amazing research and biographic storytelling of Walter Isaacson, this is an absolute must-read. So the next one on the list is something that is very closely tied to with one of my other hobbies, which are languages and linguistics. So this one is Language Families of the World by John McWhorter. And if you don't know about John McWhorter, he is probably my absolute favorite personality in the linguistic space, because he is able to talk about languages, language families, linguistics with so much knowledge, but at the same time with a humor and wit that just makes it as enjoyable as any kind of comedy that you could watch or read. And in addition to from this one, especially Language Families of the World, so what he does here is he gives an overview over all these kind of language families. He gives his opinion on how many languages he believes exist. He gives his kind of introduction of all these language families, where he goes through the world geographically basically and introduces the interesting facts, trivia, and aspects to all these families, to all these individual languages, and how they are tied to each other, and how languages grow and evolves. So it's very, very interesting if you are into this kind of topic. What I should also mention is, if you are interested in this book, do listen to the Audible instead of reading the book, because John McWhorter, he has an absolutely amazing voice that is very much enjoyable to listen to. So he narrates this book and many of the others that he wrote by himself, because often they are also kind of combined of some of his either TED Talks or of his university lectures that he does. He is university professor. I don't remember at which university, but he is very much an academic and an expert on linguistics. And it's the best book I found so far that gives an overview over all these languages and all these language families and dialects that are existing in this world of ours. So the last one for today's list, so that the video is not getting too long. And of course, I do have many more non-fiction books that I enjoy. So if you did enjoy this this video, please drop me a comment below and let me know if you want to see an episode 2 of this non-fiction recommendations of mine. But yeah, let's get into the last book here, which was one of my recent reads actually. So this is The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. And of course, if you've seen other videos of my channel, I watched Gilmore Girls growing up, and I always enjoyed the kind of dynamic, mother-daughter dynamic that they have in this TV series. But I was always more focused on the kind of Rory and Lorelai relationship, and I was less interested into the grandmother Emily, which is played by Emily Bishop, who this biography is about. So it's The Third Gilmore Girl because she's the grandmother. And when I saw this book come out, I was not quite sure if I should read it or not, because I was worried that it's too much about Gilmore Girls, and she's just, you know, trying to capitalize on that based on the title as well. But I was very much positively surprised to learn and to find out that much of this book, I would say 70%, has nothing to do with Gilmore Girls at all. It's about the life story of Kelly Bishop, and she had such an amazing and interesting life story in the world of entertainment. And it was also very much interesting to read about, you know, the kind of insecurities of, I would say, a Broadway dancer, for example, which is what Kelly Bishop was. So she didn't start out as an actor, she started out as a dancer, and yeah, she was making money, and she was getting by, but it's not like she was so successful that she could, you know, put so much money aside that she would be fine after she didn't dance anymore. So there was always this kind of insecurity of, okay, what can I do after I can't dance anymore, or I'm just not as popular anymore because looks do fade. And usually people that are getting the job for dancing are on the younger end of things. And she was able to make this very difficult transition from dance to theater to TV to movie and build a career based on that. And it's a very vulnerable book. So she, you know, she talks about her relationships, she talks about her husband, she talks about disease, she talks about up and downs. So it's a very heart touching book. It's a very interesting biography of somebody that is maybe not like an A-list actor, but had a very interesting life. So reading this book, I never like really got the feeling that she was only a full-on celebrity. She always still felt very down to earth, and it felt like she was kind of jumping back and forth between these two worlds, the world of the normal people and the world of celebrities, and how she kind of tried to integrate them with each other and make the best out of it. And it's a wonderful story to read, so I absolutely do recommend it. You don't even have to be into Gilmore Girls to enjoy this book. And yeah, that's it for today. Please let me know in the comments below, what are your favorite non-fiction books? What are your favorite biographies? And based on the books I mentioned in this video, are there any books that you would like to recommend to me that you would think I would enjoy? Please do let me know in the comments below. And yeah, that's it. See you in the next one. Bye guys.